One lion's den to another, from political exile, some would suggest, back to the Likud party. Former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations, Mr. Danny Danon, joined us here for a one-on-one interview in studio. But before we begin, here's all what you need to know.
Danny Danon was a member of the Knesset for the Likud party between 2009 and 2015, serving as Science and Technology Minister for a few months in 2015. A critic of Benjamin Netanyahu, he was fired from his position as Deputy Defense Minister in 2014 as a result of his criticism of the then Prime Minister over his handling of Operation Protective Edge. He stood down as Science and Technology Minister and as a member of the Knesset in 2015 in order to serve as Israel's envoy to the United Nations, a position he held for 5 years. But now, he is back, looking to make his way into the Knesset at the next elections and is at 15th place on the Likud list. Spearheaded by Netanyahu, Likud is set to be the largest party at the upcoming elections, with recent polls suggesting 32 seats. But it may be tricky to reach a coalition of the 61 seats needed for an overall parliamentary majority due to the polarizing nature of their leader.
Former Ambassador Danon, thank you very much for coming in studio this evening at the very peak of campaigning. We do appreciate that. But as we've just seen, the Likud party still on top, performing well in polls. We cannot take it from it. But soaring cost of living, mounting public discontent, the Likud campaign seems to be stuck. What isn't working right?
Thank you for having me tonight. I beg to disagree with you. I think what we are seeing now, that we are moving forward. We finished the previous Knesset with 54 seats. Today, according to the polls, we have 59, 60. Only 10 minutes ago, I saw a poll that we got 61 seats. But it will change. But it shows that the public is actually giving us the support. We're going to work very hard in the next 2 months to make sure that we will be able to form a government and we will have stability for 4 years. We don't want to form a government for another year like this failed government. So we want to be there for an entire term, which is 4 years in Israel.
Yes, for the long run, this is the hope of many Israelis, I'm sure. But let's zoom out a bit, Mr. Danon. Until not so long ago, you were one of the most vocal critics of opposition leader Benjamin Netanyahu from within the Likud party, giving him a run for his money, not once, but twice over the Likud leadership. And now, very sincere change of heart, or is what changed? You know what? Let's put it that way.
First of all, the Likud is a strong democracy. I challenged Netanyahu in 2015. I received a very respectful result from the supporters I have in the Likud, and I was a member of its government. Let's not forget that. In 2015, I was serving at the UN for 5 years, and at the UN, we worked together. When you are the ambassador of Israel at the UN, you work very closely with the Prime Minister, and we proved, both of us, that we are capable of working together, achieving great things. You know, some of them are public, like the Abraham Accords, moving the embassy, but some other things, nobody knows what we did, and we did a lot of things at the UN.
Perhaps more convenient when there is no political threat, quote unquote. And speaking of this deadlock, many parties across the spectrum are saying definitely yes for the Likud to reach this golden number of 61, maybe even more. But without Netanyahu, maybe it's time to say goodbye.
Maybe it's time for them to choose their own candidates and allow us to respect our democracy. Netanyahu was elected by the Likud members. If the day will come and there will be election and somebody else will get elected, we will respect it. And that's the nature of our democracy. By the way, when you look at Lapid, Gantz, Lieberman, they don't have democracy in their parties. I was elected with the support of almost 30,000 votes. At their party. Even some of the MKs today, until now, Eli, they don't know whether they will be in the next Knesset or not.
Right. It's important to note we don't have many democratic parties across the spectrum nowadays. And before we zoom out, if you will, what do you think about the conduct of your party in the previous session? You were not a member of parliament then, but we're talking about legislation bids that are supposed to be the jewel of the right wing's crown. Most notably perhaps West Bank regulations. The Likud party voted against it. Politics over policy at all costs?
The goal of the opposition is to bring down the government. And we were very successful in doing it after 1 year. So I think we should actually thank the opposition for the work they did. Sometimes it's not easy to do it, but look where we are today. We have elections only after 1 year, and we have a lot of things to correct after this year. You spoke about the cost of living. I would add internal security issues, national pride, and we intend to do it after the elections.
Well, in retrospect, you've left, as I mentioned, the political scene for your diplomatic mission. You've recently published a book called The Lion's Den, and I paraphrased on that. What changed in the frameworks of those 5 years when you're looking at the overall political landscape, and yes, also at the Likud party?
First of all, I can tell you personally that I still believe in the same values, but I come back today with better equipment to implement the values and the ideas. After 5 long years at the UN, today I have the connections, the know-how to achieve a lot of things that we believe in the Likud party, and I intend to bring it into action. That's why I'm in the game now, to make sure that we win this election. And I think in the Likud, it's nice to see that each one of us is bringing something else. You know, it's not like other parties that they all look the same, sound the same. When you come to the Likud, you know, I bring the international experience with diplomacy. Others have other field of experience, and together we build a great team.
And let's talk diplomacy. The pending nuclear deal with Iran. Did Israel play its cards right? Because what we're seeing now is somewhat of the results, the fruits of the labor of Netanyahu's government in previous years.
Absolutely not. Lapid is a failure. You know, he knows how to speak, but he doesn't understand international relations. And look what happened with the Iran deal. For a year he said, let's not talk about it. And only in the last few weeks we heard him and Gantz speaking against the agreement. They should have speak up against it from the beginning. That's the meaning of diplomacy. You meet congressmen, you give interviews to the media, you create the atmosphere that you have supporters for your ideas. He was silent. Silent is not policy, and unfortunately it's not only with the issue of the Iran deal. We saw it with Egypt, we saw it with other countries. He doesn't understand international relations.
And speaking of Ukraine, what do you think about Israel's position vis-a-vis the ongoing war now? Morally speaking, did Israel perhaps sit on the fence for too long?
I think we should speak less about it. It's sensitive, but we should do more in terms of humanitarian support. And I think what Bennett did was a mistake, trying to actually negotiate an agreement at the beginning. It wasn't serious. So I would advise my colleagues in the future government to give less interviews about what's happening in Ukraine, but to do more in terms of supporting the Ukrainian people.
And your party member, former Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat, not just visiting Ukraine, but also calling on Israel to send advanced weapons to Ukraine today?
I don't think he called for sending weapons. I think he meant doing more things in the humanitarian field, and I think that's what we should do. We are not going to get involved in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia.
And you've spent many years, as I mentioned, in New York, and a part of your work, of course, had to do with the American administration, a very different...
Which one? Because I worked with both Obama's and Trump's administration.
Right, and now we're seeing a third one, so you have a very wide perspective on that. There was some sort of a fear-mongering rhetoric when it comes to the Biden administration as for its policies vis-a-vis Israel. How would you define the current state of affairs?
So actually in my book, in The Lion's Den, I speak about the differences between Obama's administration and Trump administration. It was much easier with Ambassador Nikki Haley when she came to the UN, but we also achieved a lot with President Obama. I think with Biden it's different. I think Biden is not against Israel, but within his party he has radical voices that sometimes he is trying to satisfy them, and that is mission impossible. Take for example what happened last week when the State Department actually told us to look at the rules
of engagement.
With all due respect, we should support our soldiers. We should give them the confidence to protect themselves and us when they protect our borders.
Well, former Ambassador Danon, in the 10 seconds we have left, if it will come down to get the support of the Arabs, yes or no?
Absolutely not.
Well, on that note, former Ambassador Danny Danon, thank you very much for coming in studio, and best of luck, of course.